أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله أصحابه أجمعين. My dear Dr. Zahid Bukhari, President of ICNA, Dr. Ahmed Al-Bandari, President of Muslim American Society Mass, fellow speakers, guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We started the convention at 11 a.m. so your salams could be stronger. You got to sleep in and rest, so Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. Dr. Zahid talked about networking, so when I came in this morning and I sat down, I networked with 3 new people. I met beloved brothers from New York, Brother Bilal, we call him now Bilal al-Bengali because he's of Bangladesh. My brother Ayub al-Mauritani from Mauritania, and Papa of Senegal. May Allah preserve them and protect them. Together we made dua for this convention to be successful and for the message to be delivered and indeed the message to be received and practiced. ICNA did something very special earlier this year, last year actually, when they made the campaign of Save Family, Save Society. And I think it's not at all to be taken for granted that when the leadership of an organization does something of benefit, does something constructive, it is up to you and I to acknowledge that, to appreciate it, and to show gratitude to them, but then also to implement what is being taught and what is being conveyed as the message. When we think about the family in America, and I must tell you, it's difficult to speak about this topic as a social worker, as someone who is now in the academy, attempting to write and to teach about this topic and to do research on it, and then to live out the fact that I am the husband to a wife, a father to 2 sons, 8 years old and 7 years old, who this weekend would like to go camping for the Boy Scouts. So their father says, we will negotiate. I will get up in the morning after Fajr and fly to Connecticut. I will finish my lectures in the evening, fly back, and then we will drive 3.5 hours to the campsite, and in the morning we will be there. How about that? Negotiation at a very early age. I face challenges in my life. I face challenges in my family. But as the other speakers will begin to tell you, there is much hope to face those challenges as a Muslim, because our trust is in Allah Azza wa Jal, that if the marriage begins, it begins in purity, with pure steps, with pure intentions, with ikhlas, sincerity. Insha'Allah ta'ala, anything that affects it, any of the challenges I will talk about that affect it, can and will insha'Allah ta'ala bi'idnillah be surpassed and overcome. The question we have to ask ourselves is, are we committed to doing so? Do we have what it takes, the willpower, to be able to overcome these things, or to walk away, as has been going on month after month after month, where families, couples falling apart within months of the marriage, within literally months of the marriage, and sometimes they've spent so much to get married. As I say, the bills of the final vendor have not even come through to pay for the marriage before there is a talk about falling apart and of divorce. What are the trends about the family in America? I must preface this by saying there's clearly not enough research. We should be speaking with data. We should be speaking with actual cases. But we have what we have, which are that I travel, Dr. Zahid travels, Dr. Ahmed travels, Brother Yahya travels, Brother Muhammad and the other speakers, they all travel, the imams are there. We have what we know from experience. And one of the amazing trends I see is that there are children in our communities now, mashallah, tabarakallah, who are getting married super early, I call it, somewhere between 21 and 23. Their consciousness is awakened. They have been on the right path. They have been studying Islam, and they say, there is absolutely no reason for me to delay getting married. That is a trend. That is a trend. And where possible, we should encourage it, because it follows the prophetic tradition to encourage those whose desires for marriage have awakened, who are capable of doing so, and then we help them as a community. But there is the other trend, that which keeps me awake and others awake, that which leads to phone calls even when I'm traveling, emails, difficult voices of the mothers and the fathers saying, what can we do for my daughter or my son? He is now 37, approaching 40. She is now 27, a professional woman. The trend is that there is this other group of unmarried, sometimes single women, unmarried, whose only hope was to get married earlier. But it was their parents who said, don't get married till you have a career, till you have a job, till you have some way to support yourself. And astaghfirullah, if we should think about that, the rizq is from Allah. And they said, you get a career. Why? In case you get a divorce, you can protect and provide for yourself. What was the thinking like? What was it like that you thought that you could delay the marriage of your daughter until 27 and 8 and 9 and 30 and 32 and 3 and 4, and one case of 37 where they have a paper and papers of degrees, but not the tranquility, the sakina and the compassion which is lacking in their lives. That's trend number one. And I clearly will not have enough time to go through all of these, and some of these I will mention, and inshallah we can discuss it another time, and perhaps the other speakers will be inspired to touch upon them. There is a trend of families that have 2 career households. One income is not enough. So everybody go out and work. Everybody leave the house. Everybody be everywhere except at home, where the children should be, where the parents should be, where the education should be occurring, where the love and the tranquility and the mercy should be transmitted, where the affection of the parents should be transmitted to the children, not at the hands of an existence of a latchkey child who comes home at 3 o'clock to find a frozen dinner ready for him or her. This is not a life that Islam encourages. This is not the Islam, the family that we talk about when we talk about the family in America. And by Allah, we have enough resources to say that even if we had to live in a house that had 1 less bedroom, in a family that had 1 less car, in an income that was a few $1,000s less, it would still be more worth it. And that family will be stronger, more well-knit than a family with a 2-career household where no one is close to Allah and everyone is concerned about the dunya and forgotten the akhirah. There is clearly a trend of the reduction of number of children in the family. You know, the China policy was one child, 1 family. In Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran clearly tells us not to stop having children or to be afraid of having children for fear of poverty. And the analogy, example given in nature is, don't you see the birds that leave the nest earlier in the day, returning by the end of the day sustained, content? The reduction in the number of children in the families, brothers and sisters, is a source of concern if it is being done so that I can have more time in my career, so that I can do everything I wanted to do, so that me and my wife can do all of the things that we wanted to do, and to save that money for ourselves and be afraid of spending it on the children that may be blessed to come. And I tell you, the saddest thing I hear from parents when I'm talking to them, I say, do you have children? They say, yes, we have. And we have this age and that age and that age, and so is 4. But she was an accident, or he was an accident. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you that your imagination has led you to say that a child blessed to you by Allah is an accident simply because your imagination didn't allow you to prepare, perhaps financially, or perhaps sequentially in terms of the number of children and the years apart, that you would call that child an accident blessed to you by Allah? When there are couples who we know of, all their life, their marriage, they've not been able to have children, and they pray to Allah every day. Others whose children Allah has taken from them through early illness and death. What is wrong with us when we talk that way? the onset of mental and physical health challenges. Brothers and sisters, this is a trend. This is a trend. Let us stop denying that there are issues in the Muslim family emanating perhaps from the withholding of the disclosure of the existence of these conditions, these pre-existing conditions to the coming spouse and to her family. By Allah, you should know everything as much as possible within reason about who you are marrying. I have a case where the brother said, they never told me she had mental health issues, only that I found out a year later, and I was patient and patient and patient, and there was nothing more I could do, nothing to sustain that relationship. For she was in her own world, drugged up and barely surviving. Not that I would leave her only for that, but there was no harmony between us. Physical health issues, the onset of these things, and there's a study done recently, particularly about the sociocultural and demographic variables, just to look at depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD as it is known, for the impact of September 11th and thereafter. 350 Muslims and Arab families, adults. The findings go something like this: that older people, demographic in terms of age, who are not single, essentially married, who have children, have a low level of education, and believed that life in fact changed after September 11th, experienced greater levels of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. What does that mean? That there are clearly people among us who have been affected by the environment, by the context in which they live. This is not something we should push aside. This is not something we should just say, oh brother, just pray and everything will be okay. Yes, pray, but get help. Yes, pray, but get counseling. Yes, pray, and if you must be on drugs of some kind prescribed by the psychiatrist, yes, take that. If it will take away your agitation, if it will take away your irritability, if it will make you less violent at home, even verbally and emotionally and physically violent, causing a harmonious home to become disharmonious, and indeed leading to abuse of all kinds. And indeed another trend, and I know my time was short, is that there are indeed increased stresses emanating from the elderly generation who were the pioneer generations. Pioneers even in the African American community, if they became Muslim in the 60s and 70s, they are now old. If they arrived on the shores of New York and California and other places, they are now old. And the increased responsibility of the family to care for the elderly. This, brothers and sisters, is in itself is a trend leading to stresses, and we must address those stresses. The challenge is again prefaced by the fact that there is not enough research. More is being done, and more needs to be done to know the variety and the intensity and the frequency of these challenges. First and foremost is, and many could be stated, the dissimilar life experiences with regards to the knowledge, practice, and appreciation of Islam in one's life. We have marriages falling apart because the people were raised in two different universes, two different understandings of Islam, two different practices of Islam, two different appreciations of Islam. So when you get into a household, and it happened even with my own self, my wife and I spent the first several years of our marriage, the first several months of our getting to know one another, discussing precisely that, discussing our understanding of Islam, reading common things and then discussing those common things, literature in Islam, and saying, when you read this, what do you understand? When you see this, what do you understand? When this hadith is read, what do you understand? When this verse is read, what do you understand? When we have children, what will it be like? And I say the best therapy for a young couple who has gotten married is to send them and for them to plan several long road trips where they can discuss things in a car, moving at high speeds, where nobody can open the door and say, I'm getting out of here, you can't go anywhere unless you want to die. A lot can be stated in a rahla, in a trip, where you learn the other person's personality. You travel with them, you eat with them, as the prophetic tradition and the companions taught us. You do business with them, you transact with them, you watch them, you learn from them. Another challenge is the generational differences in the understanding of the roles and responsibilities of the husbands, the wives, and the children. Is the understanding. Brothers and sisters, we have husbands expecting, apparently they are marrying a woman who will become their servant in that marriage. By Allah, this is not the example of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When asked about him, his wife Aisha radiallahu anha said about him, كَانَ فِي مَحْنَةِ أَهْلِهِ, that he was in the mehna, in the service of his family. The service of his family. Not that he expected to be served. If he is marrying that boy, someone he thinks will take care of him like his mother, he is mistaken. For even his mother went through a lot of hardship to raise him and to take care of him. And she didn't have half of the niceties of life. It's a shared responsibility. And by Allah, if you ask my family, I am the official appointed ironer of the family. Anywhere we go, I stand and I iron the clothes. Before I leave home for a trip, I commit to doing the laundry. When I come back, I clean the bathrooms. I say nothing to you that I myself do not do. But this confusion in responsibilities is driving people apart. Yes, if it is to be one income and the husband works, there must be shared responsibilities. She must do more. But then he must do also more to provide and to make up for that. And the challenge is that the time is short, so I will continue. The lack of knowledge and the training in coping with marital difficulties. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhum, when he married Fatima radiallahu anha, the daughter of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they themselves had issues. They had issues in the marriage. They had, challenges they faced. And they would go to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All throughout the Quran, there are qasas, there are stories of the prophets who had issues in their family. Nuh alayhi salam, whose own family did not have the luxury, if you will, or the rukhsa of being saved. And let me quickly go to the strategies so I can close. Promotion of early education of the children to help them understand their roles and responsibilities as individuals and as members of the family. Secondly, to help our boys and girls to become conscious at an early age of haya, of modesty, of mercy, of rahmah, of respect, of compassion, mawadda, of dignity in gender relations. How do you treat a man? How do you treat a woman? How did the prophetic tradition teach us? Train the boys and girls for future roles of husbands and wives. Develop a critical mass of young people and fund their education in health and human services professions, as educators, as therapists, as counselors, as everything, as researchers. Fund research on the state of the Muslim community. These are some strategies. Promote the participation of families in the research. Many times the researchers that I travel with and I present with at conferences, they say, Dr. Hussain, our challenge is that your Muslim people don't open up. I am saying to you, by law there are regulations to keep your identity confidential and anonymous if you so choose. The data you will give them, the information you will give them, could result in additional government funding for programs to help families. And indeed, this is the least that we can do to help. The promotion of families in longitudinal studies. A couple gets married in 2010. This Memorial Day weekend, let us follow them for 10 years. 10 years and say, in 2010 and 2020, look at the state of this couple. And by Allah, let us say, mashallah, we have a couple of which to speak. Let us not say that through domestic abuse or violence or this or that or this, they divorced and they split apart. The phenomena of going on a honeymoon and returning in 2 separate flights. Muhammad Faqih, Sheikh Muhammad of California just told me this. This is happening more and more. What is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? We want to follow them for longitudinally. And of course, last but not least, think of what we can do as each individual in our communities to help the state of the family? Can we give more money to the masjid to establish social services? Can we give more money to ICNA Relief and other organizations, the Islamic Social Services Association, other organizations, all of whom are doing good, Muslim Family Services in Detroit, all of them are doing good. But some people have to step up and give money, if not their expertise and skills. In Malaysia, and I'll close with this, the eastern state of Terengganu actually came up with a beautiful, beautiful model, something we can think about. If they know of couples that are having problems, the couples can apply for help to the state. And you know what the state will do? They will fund for them a free 3-day second honeymoon on a tropical island. And then for successful applicants, they will get that vacation in addition to counseling. Why don't we think about that? There is so much stress, so much to do, such little time. Everybody, my 8-year-old and 4-year-old are talking about we're going to be late, we don't have enough time. They're talking about time. And that we didn't have the conception of time. Perhaps that explains the state of our ummah when we were growing up. But in their age they have. So why don't we think about those things? If you see a couple in your community, why don't you offer them? We will take the kids for a weekend. You guys just go. Hang out. Get to know one another again. Go back and see what brought you together and let Allah restore love in your hearts. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.